in the hell happened? In the girls' bathroom.
Don't be no. 2020 sucked. I don't think I have to explain why. You know, there was quite the mishaps around the world, but at the very least, it was a good year for gaming. Better than most will realize, because one of its greatest achievements unfortunately happens to be its best kept secret. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is a name that hopefully sounds vaguely familiar. Maybe you recognize the art style, a Marvel signature of Vanillaware. Maybe you heard praise from fans, critics, and developers alike. Or maybe you recall its nomination for Best Narrative at the Game Awards. Of course, it was never going to win because the show's a meme, a popularity contest, yada yada yada. It's like everyone agrees it's trivial, but then some get salty anyway. I don't know, I was shocked and overjoyed because my favorite series, Xenoblade, is regularly snubbed. So if this was nominated despite being so niche, it must be something special, right? Let's put it this way. Winning the award would have been an understatement. 13 Sentinels quickly stands out by drawing a line between its narrative and battle system. The player is free to dive into each at their leisure, but both are necessary to complete. We'll start with Destruction since it's by far the lesser portion. The premise is simple. 13 high school students pilot giant mechs called Sentinels to save the world from robotic kaiju. This is represented by real-time strategy, where the goal is to wipe out all the kaiju or to defend until time runs out. This may not be considered original or promising, and to be brutally honest, Destruction doesn't get any better. There's no need to explain the mechanics, because what you see is what you get. A valid opinion can be formed after a single battle, so they're bound to get old when there's 30 of them. The system isn't flawed in a bubble, there's just not enough depth or variety to earn that abundance. Even visually, there could have been much more done to freshen things up. At this point, you're probably asking, is this a bait? How could you sing its praises when you don't like the battle system? 2 words. Casual mode! No shame in swapping over, because this is clearly a story-driven game. Out of 28 hours, I spent about a handful in Destruction, so it's ultimately minor in the grand scheme of things. And remember, the pacing is determined by the player, so tedium can easily be alleviated. At worst, Destruction's fine. It serves a meaningful purpose, and it won't deter you from experiencing the narrative. Especially when that narrative is an experience like no other. Remembrance depicts the incredible events that lead the 13 pilots to destruction. Each protagonist has their own storyline in an episodic-like format, and while they're all related and intertwined, they are nonetheless distinct. When a protagonist is chosen, the player will be treated to a side-scrolling visual novel. Progress is typically made by using the Thought Cloud, a collection of information that is gathered through dialogue and in the environment. Instead of a correct answer, your decisions will often result in branching paths. Don't think of these paths as alternate timelines, think of them as crucial scenes that are unlocked by changing your approach to a previous situation. No worries, backtracking is a breeze thanks to checkpoints and fast forwarding. The gameplay is admittedly light, yet appropriate. It evokes critical thinking skills while being generous enough to never frustrate or slow down the pace. I've been pretty secretive about the actual plot details, and that's for the best. Take my word for it, 13 Sentinels is a wild ride that deserves to not be spoiled. Don't take the cliche premise to heart. I mean, there are a lot of anime tropes, including a nurse whose only small asset is her JPEG. However, we've been through this before. Tropes do not equate to a lesser story, and this is a textbook case. It's impressive how the number of protagonists has no repercussions on the writing. They're all likable, suitably flawed, and have scenarios that are endlessly unique. I genuinely grew to love them, even when I wasn't expecting to. Perhaps the most pleasant surprise is every time I encountered a plot hole or a quirk that is commonly forgiven in media, I ended up realizing it wasn't a plot hole or a quirk to begin with. I know this is ambiguous, so here's a light example. Why are our heroes naked in battle? Well, it's anime, right? Nope! 13 Sentinels does not use anime or video game logic as an excuse. If anything, it uses them to subvert expectations with a fulfilling explanation. I repeat, a fulfilling explanation. I won't pretend everything is perfect though, I do have my nitpicks. Predictable of teenagers, there are plenty of motivations based on being in love or having a mere crush. Though there are romances worth cheering on, I found the total amount to be a bit much in the end. Iori's storyline in particular is disappointing. It's oddly carefree for how significant her character is. She also caused the sole moments where I had to look up what to do, and I'm not blaming myself for that. Finally, and this is more of a warning than a criticism, confusion will be a familiar feeling. It's impossible to focus on a single protagonist at a time. You're going to be jumping left and right, and even if you could, the story is extremely non-linear with time skips, time travel, flashbacks, and flash forwards. Some players will be turned off by this, and hey, that's understandable, it's not for everyone. It will be tough to keep up if any attention slips. But holding your attention is exactly what 13 Sentinels excels at. I don't consider myself a fan of sci-fi and immensely complicated narratives, and yet I have never been this constantly engaged by a video game story. The storytelling is phenomenal. It will immediately capture your curiosity and refuse to let go of it. The episodes are immaculately written so that you're always learning something of interest, while there's always enough in the distance to make you dread the words "to be continued." For instance, there is actually an anime trope I despise: the flirtatious personality who harasses a girl until she falls in love with them, because, you know, that's a wonderful message to send. While this dampens my enjoyments of a game like Final Fantasy IX, 13 Sentinels has an intriguing revelation around every corner, to the point where I never minded it. Now listen up. This is important, because I'm willing to bet there's a couple of you thinking, "Wow, Nara, I can't wait to watch it on YouTube." If there's only one thing you take away from this video, it's that you should play 13 Sentinels. A spectator will still find the story to be among the best in gaming, but there is so much to gain by being an active participant, and that's because the player has a powerful role in the storytelling. You can choose to play as any protagonist you'd like in any order you desire. Though there are prerequisites here and there, you will never be short of options. You may assume there's an order you should be taking, but in reality, the circumstances do not change the satisfaction. The satisfaction is the change in circumstances. You truly have the freedom to experience the story your way, and that freedom will be your most rewarding strength. I was able to craft my own theories, make my own deductions, and unravel the truth in a manner that is exclusive to my own experience. If I drew a diagram of what was going on in my head, it would not look identical to any other player, but each of our illustrations would be a masterpiece. This isn't just a story to enjoy, it's a story to explore. We may end up at the same destination, but in this case, it really is about the journey. Not that of the characters, but that of the player. 13 Sentinels is the peak of video game storytelling. It is so unrelentingly yet flexibly fascinating that you have to play it to believe it. If the battles were better handled, this would be an easy 10 out of 10. And regardless, it is my game of the year for 2020 because what it does is remarkably special. The entire gaming industry, as well as any aspiring writer, could learn from it. Realistically though, it will never be properly recognized due to its niche genre and anime flair. That's why I am pleading with you to give it a shot if you are interested. Right now it's 50% off on PSN, while physical copies are having occasional discounts until it inevitably becomes rare. I have one last pitch that should resonate with my subscribers. One final stand. Remember your surprise when you learned of this video's existence. Would I have bothered to come back if there was any doubt in this recommendation? Even if 13 Sentinels isn't your favorites of 2020, I am confident that it will at least be a nomination.